I stayed silent while my own family destroyed my life, because I needed them to think I was weak. That leather journal in my hands. It wasn't a graduation gift. It was proof they'd been playing me for years. But let me back up to the moment everything clicked into place. Hartford Central High. May 2019. The gym smelled like floor polish and cheap perfume. 300 folding chairs lined up in perfect rows. Families everywhere, phones out, waiting to capture their kid's big moment. I'm standing backstage in my blue cap and gown, watching the ceremony through a gap in the curtain. My sister Madison is 2 rows ahead of me in the graduate lineup. She's texting someone, not paying attention. Classic. The principal calls her name first. Madison Parker. My parents shoot up from their seats like someone lit them on fire. Mom's clapping so hard I can hear it over everyone else. Dad's got his phone up, recording. Madison walks across the stage. Diploma in hand. Big smile. Then the principal says something I don't catch, and Madison's face lights up like she just won the lottery. They lead her outside. Through the gym doors, I see it. Cherry red convertible. Brand new. Sitting right there in the parking lot with a giant white bow on top. The entire audience gasps. People start whispering. Cameras flash. Madison screams, jumps, hugs mom and dad like they just handed her the world. My stomach drops. I'm next in line. My name gets called, but I barely hear it. I walk to the stage on autopilot. Shake hands. Take my diploma. The applause is polite. Normal. Nothing special. I scan the crowd for my parents. They're still outside with Madison. 15 minutes later, parking lot. Everyone's taking photos. My parents finally wave me over. We have something for you too, sweetheart, Dad says. His voice has that fake warmth he uses when he's trying to smooth things over. Mom hands me a small box. Wrapped in plain brown paper. I open it. Leather journal. Black cover. My initials stamped on the front in gold. That's it. My throat goes tight. I force a smile. Thanks. We thought you'd appreciate something meaningful, Mom says. You're always writing things down. I nod. I thank them. My hands won't stop shaking as I hold that journal. Something darker was building inside me, but they had no idea. That night, I locked my bedroom door. The journal sat on my desk like it was mocking me. I didn't want to open it. Part of me knew that once I did, something would change forever. But I couldn't help myself. First few pages were blank. Normal. Then I flipped further and froze. My mother's handwriting filled the next 10 pages. Neat, controlled letters. Blue ink. But these weren't sweet notes about my future. They were instructions. College schedule, fall semester, 8 a.m. wake up, library by 9 a.m., no social events on weekdays, bi-weekly calls home to confirm grades. I kept reading. Approved major, pre-med or engineering. Backup, business administration. Under no circumstances pursue arts or humanities. My hands started trembling again. There were rules about everything. Who I could room with. What jobs I was allowed to take. Even a list of acceptable friends, based on their family backgrounds and career prospects. At the bottom of one page, regular check-ins required. We'll be monitoring your progress closely. This wasn't guidance. This was a leash. I flipped more pages, faster now. Then I found something that made my blood run cold. Letters. Addressed to Madison. In the same journal they gave me. Dearest Madison, we're so proud of the woman you're becoming. Your free spirit and independence inspire us every day. Free spirit. Independence. Madison got a car and love letters. I got a handbook on how to live my life exactly the way they wanted. But here's what really twisted the knife. Tucked between pages 47 and 48 was a bank statement. I almost missed it. The paper was thin, folded tight. I pulled it out. Smoothed it flat on my desk. Parker Family Trust, Educational Fund, Emily Parker, beneficiary. My name. Right there at the top. The account had been opened when I was 6 years old. Contributions every month for 12 years. The balance 3 years ago. $83,000. Current balance. 0. Withdrawn in full. March 2017. 2 years ago. March 2017. That's when Madison got her first car. Not the convertible, that starter BMW she totaled 6 months later. I sat there staring at that statement until the numbers blurred. They hadn't just favored Madison. They'd stolen from me to do it. Every achievement. Every perfect grade. Every time I made them proud, they'd been planning this. Using my future to fund her present. I had 2 options right then. Storm downstairs and scream until my voice gave out, or stay quiet and think. I chose the one they'd never expect. I opened my laptop and started digging. 3 hours later, my room looked like a detective's office. Bank statements spread across my bed. Old tax documents I'd pulled from Dad's filing cabinet while everyone slept. Receipts I found in the recycling bin. I took photos of everything with my phone before putting them back. Here's what I learned that night. The educational fund wasn't the only account in my name. There was a second one. Smaller, but still significant. Emily Parker, Future Investment Portfolio. Also empty. Withdrawn September 2018. September 2018. Madison's senior year spring break. She went to Europe for 3 weeks. Posted about it constantly. I stayed home and worked at the library. I pulled up her social media. Scrolled back. Paris. London. Barcelona. Designer shopping bags in every photo. Mom and Dad are the best, with heart emojis. $5,700. That's what the portfolio withdrawal was for. My entire childhood, I'd watched them treat her differently and told myself it wasn't about money. It was just their personalities clashing with mine. Maybe I was too serious. Too boring. Maybe if I tried harder, achieved more, they'd finally see me. But this wasn't about personality. This was calculated. Deliberate. They'd set up funds in my name, let them grow, then took every penny when Madison wanted something. I found more. A credit card statement from last year. M. Parker, authorized user. $15,000 in charges. Paid off in full the same month. Clothes. Restaurants. Concert tickets. A weekend in Miami. Then I found something that made everything make sense. Trust fund documents. Not for me, for Madison. Established the year she was born. Managed by my parents. Distribution schedule laid out clearly. Age 18, $25,000. Age 21, $50,000. Age 25, full remaining balance. Madison had her own money this whole time. Guaranteed money she'd get no matter what. And they still took mine to give her more. I wasn't the investment. I was the bank. The room felt smaller suddenly. Like the walls were closing in. I wanted to cry, but nothing came out. Just this cold, sharp clarity. Here's the thing about being the responsible one, People underestimate you. They think obedient means stupid. They think quiet means blind. My parents had no idea I'd found any of this. And I wasn't going to tell them. Not yet. I gathered every document, every photo, every piece of evidence and created a folder on my laptop. Backed it up 3 times. Cloud storage, external drive, email draft to myself. Then I put everything back exactly where I found it. When I finally went to bed that night, the journal was still on my desk. I didn't need their instructions anymore. I was writing my own story now. Morning came too fast. Sunlight through my window. Birds chirping. Everything normal, like the world hadn't just shifted underneath me. I could hear Mom downstairs making breakfast. The smell of coffee drifted up. Dad's shower was running. Madison's door was still closed. She never woke up before noon if she could help it. I got dressed. Jeans and a t-shirt. Went downstairs. Morning, honey, Mom said without looking up from her phone. There's oatmeal on the stove. Thanks. I served myself. Sat at the kitchen table. Ate slowly. Dad came down 5 minutes later. Ty already nodded. Big day today, he said. Your mother and I have appointments with the college financial advisor this afternoon. My spoon stopped halfway to my mouth. Financial advisor. For your tuition planning, Mom chimed in. We want to make sure everything's set before you leave in August. The audacity was stunning. They'd emptied 2 accounts with my name on them, and now they were going to sit across from some advisor and pretend they'd been saving responsibly. I could have said something right then. Called them out. Thrown the bank statements on the table and watched them scramble for excuses. But that would have been the old version of this story. The one where I lose control and they spin it into me being dramatic. Ungrateful. Emotional. So I smiled instead. That sounds good. What time? 2 o'clock. We'll be back by 4. Perfect. I finished my oatmeal. Rinsed my bowl. Went back upstairs like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. See, confronting them directly would have felt good for maybe 10 minutes. Then what? They'd defend themselves. Twist the narrative. Make me the villain for not trusting them. Maybe they'd even gaslight me into thinking I misunderstood the statements. No. I needed something bigger. Something they couldn't talk their way out of. I opened my laptop and started researching. Misappropriation of funds. Breach of fiduciary duty. Educational trust violations. The legal terms felt heavy, serious. Real. Then I found something interesting. A forum post from 2 years ago. Someone in a similar situation, parents draining a college fund meant for one kid. The response from a lawyer was clear. If you're over 18 and your name is on the account as beneficiary, you have legal standing. Document everything. Timestamps matter. Get legal advice before confronting. I was 18. As of yesterday, officially. The timing was almost funny. They'd given me that journal on the exact day I became an adult in the eyes of the law. I spent the next 3 hours doing something I'd never done before, looking for attorneys. Family law specialists. Free consultations. I made a list. 5 names. All in Hartford. All with good reviews. At 1:45 p.m., I heard the garage door open. Mom and Dad leaving for their appointment. I waited until their car pulled out of the driveway. Then I picked up my phone and dialed the first number on my list. The law office was smaller than I expected. 3rd floor of an old building downtown. Carpet that had seen better days. Waiting room with magazines from last year. But the receptionist was kind, and that mattered more than fancy furniture. "Miss Parker. Mr. Chin will see you now." I followed her down a narrow hallway. My palms were sweating. I'd never done anything like this before. Never gone behind my parents' backs. Never questioned their authority. The old version of me would have felt guilty just for being here. The new version. I felt focused. Mr. Chen was younger than I expected. Maybe 40. Glasses. Kind eyes. He gestured to a chair across from his desk. "So," he said, opening a notepad. "You mentioned on the phone this involves family finances and possible misuse of funds. Tell me what's going on." I pulled out my phone. Showed him the photos I'd taken. Bank statements. Trust documents. The withdrawal records. He studied each one carefully. His expression didn't change, but I saw his jaw tighten slightly. "How old are you?" he asked. 18. As of yesterday. "And these accounts, they were established in your name when you were a minor?" "Yes. The educational fund started when I was 6. The investment portfolio when I was 10. He leaned back in his chair. "Here's the situation. While you were a minor, your parents had legal authority to manage these funds. The question is whether they managed them appropriately." My stomach sank. "So they can just take the money?" "Not exactly." He tapped one of the photos. "This account is specifically labeled as an educational trust with you as the beneficiary. That creates certain obligations. If they withdrew funds for purposes other than your education, that's problematic. They bought my sister a car. 2 cars, actually. And paid for her trips to Europe." Mr. Chin nodded slowly. "Do you have proof the withdrawals match those purchases timeline-wise?" I showed him Madison's social media posts. Dated and geotagged. Then the credit card statements with matching dates. He was quiet for a long moment. "This is actionable," he finally said. "But I need you to understand something. Going after your parents legally, this will change your family permanently. There's no coming back from it." "They already changed it," I said. My voice came out harder than I expected. "I just didn't know until yesterday." He studied my face. "What outcome do you want?" "The money back. Public accountability. An apology." I hadn't thought about it in those terms. What did I want? The truth was, I didn't know yet. Part of me wanted them to hurt the way they'd hurt me. Part of me just wanted acknowledgement that what they did was wrong. "I want options," I said finally. "I want to know what I can do. Then I'll decide." Mr. Chen nodded. "Fair enough. Here's what I recommend. We document everything. I'll draft a formal letter outlining the concerns. Sometimes just receiving something on legal letterhead is enough to make people reconsider their actions. And if it's not enough, then we escalate. But let's start there." I left his office 40 minutes later with a plan. A real, concrete plan. For the first time since opening that journal, I felt like I had control over something. What I didn't know was that someone had seen me walk into that building. And they'd already made a phone call. I got home at 4:30. Dad's car was already in the driveway. So was Madison's convertible. That was wrong. Madison never came home this early. She was usually out with friends until dinner. I walked through the front door and knew immediately something had shifted. All 3 of them were in the living room. Mom on the couch. Dad standing by the fireplace. Madison perched on the arm of the chair, arms crossed. They turned to look at me at the same time. "Sit down," Dad said. Not angry. Worse, disappointed. I stayed standing. What's going on? We got a call today, Mom said. Her voice was tight. Controlled. From downtown. Apparently someone saw you entering a law office. My blood went cold, but I kept my face neutral. So. Dad stepped forward. You want to explain why our daughter is visiting lawyers without telling us? Family friend saw you going in, Madison added helpfully. Too helpfully. She was enjoying this. Said it looked serious. I had two choices here. Backtrack, apologize, make up some excuse. Or lean in. I thought about that empty bank statement. The journal full of rules. The convertible in the driveway purchased with money that should have been mine. I leaned in. I was getting legal advice about the educational fund you emptied. Silence. Heavy and thick. Mom's face went pale. Dad's expression hardened. That money was managed appropriately, he said. We used it for family expenses. Madison's car isn't a family expense. Watch your tone, Dad warned. But I was done watching anything. I found the statements. Both accounts. I know exactly when you withdrew the money and what you spent it on. Madison's smirk faded. Wait, what accounts? Mom shot her a look that clearly meant shut up, but the damage was done. Madison didn't know. They'd kept her in the dark too, just in a different way. There were two accounts set up in my name, I said, looking directly at Madison. College fund and investment portfolio. Together, almost $90,000. Gone. Guess where it went? Madison looked at Mom. Is that true? This is a private family matter, Mom said, standing up. And it's certainly not something we discuss with lawyers involved. You made it a legal matter when you stole from me. The word hung in the air. Stole. I'd said it. No taking it back now. Dad's face turned red. We are your parents. We provided for you your entire life. Clothes, food, a roof over your head. You don't get to accuse us of. That's what parents are supposed to do, I interrupted. You don't get credit for basic obligations. And you definitely don't get to steal my college money because you already spent Madison's trust fund on her. I have a trust fund. Madison looked genuinely confused now. Mom's hands were shaking. Get out. What? I said get out. Go to your room. We'll discuss this when you've calmed down and can speak respectfully. I looked at all three of them. Mom furious. Dad rigid with anger. Madison lost somewhere between confused and defensive. I turned and walked upstairs. Behind me, I heard Mom's voice, low and venomous. She has no idea what she just started. Actually, I had every idea. And I wasn't backing down. They locked me out of the family computer that night. Changed the Wi-Fi password too. Petty, but effective. They wanted to isolate me. Make me dependent. Force an apology. But they forgot I had a phone with unlimited data. And a laptop that didn't need their network. I lay in bed scrolling through everything I'd backed up. Bank statements. Trust documents. Madison's social media showing off trips and cars I now knew I'd paid for. Around midnight, my door opened. Madison slipped inside, closing it quietly behind her. We need to talk, she whispered. I sat up. Do we? She perched on the edge of my desk chair. In the dim light from my phone, she looked younger. Less sure of herself. Is it true? She asked. About the accounts in your name. Yes. And they used that money on me. Some of it. Not all. But yeah. She was quiet for a long moment. I didn't know. Does that make you feel better or worse? I don't know. Her voice cracked slightly. They told me the car was from their savings. That they'd been planning it for years. I thought they just loved me more. The honesty surprised me. Madison had never been the type to admit vulnerability. They do love you more, I said. It came out matter of fact, not bitter. Just true. That's not, she stopped. Started again. Okay, maybe. But not because you're not worth loving. I think they just. I don't know. You never needed them the way I did. You were always so independent. I was independent because they made me be. Every time I needed something, there was a condition attached. Every achievement came with new expectations. It was easier to just handle things myself. Madison pulled her knees up to her chest. I'm sorry. For what? For not noticing. For taking things without asking where they came from. For being, whatever I've been. I wanted to stay angry at her. It would have been simpler. But sitting there in the dark, I realized Madison was just as much a pawn in this as I was. They'd turned us against each other without either of us seeing it happen. What are you going to do? She asked. The lawyer said he'd send a letter. Formal demand for accounting of the funds. If they don't respond appropriately, we can escalate. Escalate how? Legal action. Possibly criminal if the misappropriation is significant enough. Madison's eyes widened. You'd actually take them to court. I don't want to. But I'm not going to let them pretend this didn't happen. She stood up, moved toward the door, then hesitated. For what it's worth, I'll tell them the truth. That I didn't know about your accounts. That they shouldn't have done it. They won't listen to you. Probably not. But I'll try anyway. After she left, I lay back down. Sleep didn't come easy. The next morning, I woke to voices downstairs. Loud ones. I crept to the top of the stairs. Can't believe you put me in this position. Madison's voice, angry. We gave you everything, Mom shot back. And this is how you repay us. I didn't ask you to steal from my sister. Watch your mouth, young lady. No. You watch yours. Because if this goes to court, I'm testifying. For her, not you. Footsteps. A door slamming. Then silence. I went back to my room and opened my laptop. Mr. Chen's email was waiting, letter drafted. Ready to send on your approval. Once I send this, things will move quickly. Are you sure? I typed back 3 words, send it today. What happened next? Even I couldn't predict. But I was ready. The letter arrived at our house 3 days later. I was at work when it happened. Summer job at the library, shelving books and helping with computer classes. Normal, boring, exactly what I needed to keep my mind occupied. Mom called at 2:47 p.m. I let it go to voicemail. She called again. And again. 6 times in 10 minutes. My supervisor noticed. You okay? Someone's really trying to reach you. Family stuff, I said. I'll call back on my break. But I didn't need to. At 3:15, Dad's truck pulled into the library parking lot. He walked in, spotted me at the circulation desk, and his face was a storm. We need to talk. Now. My supervisor started to say something, but I held up a hand. It's fine. I'll take my break. We went outside. The afternoon sun was brutal. Heat radiating off the asphalt. Dad held up an envelope. Official letterhead visible even from a distance. You want to explain this? I think it explains itself. His hands were shaking. Actually shaking. I'd never seen him lose composure like this. Do you have any idea what you've done? This letter accuses us of theft. Theft. From our own daughter. Misappropriation of designated funds, I corrected. That's the legal term Mr. Chin used. I don't care what term some lawyer used. You went behind our backs. You're threatening legal action against your own parents. You stole $90,000 from me. What did you think would happen? We didn't steal anything. His voice rose. People in the parking lot were starting to look. That money was managed for the family's benefit. You live in our house. You eat our food. You had 2 accounts specifically set up for my education that you emptied to buy Madison cars and vacations. He stepped closer. You ungrateful. Careful. My voice came out colder than I expected. We're in public. And I have my phone recording. I didn't, actually. But the bluff worked. He stepped back. This letter gives you 30 days to provide full accounting, I continued. Bank records, receipts, explanation of every withdrawal. That's not unreasonable. If the money was used appropriately, you'll have documentation. And if we refuse? Then Mr. Chin files a civil suit. And depending on what the investigation finds, possibly criminal charges. Dad's face went from red to pale. Criminal. Misappropriation of educational trust funds can be prosecuted in Connecticut. Especially when the amounts are this significant. You'd send your own parents to jail. The question hung between us. Would I? A week ago, the answer would have been no. Absolutely not. The idea would have horrified me. But standing there, watching him try to intimidate me in a library parking lot, I realized something had fundamentally changed. I don't want you in jail, I said quietly. I want honesty. I want acknowledgement that what you did was wrong. And I want my college paid for since you took the money that was supposed to cover it. We can't afford. You can afford Madison's trust fund distributions. She gets $50,000 at 21. That's in 2 years. You'll figure it out. Dad looked at me like he'd never seen me before. When did you become this person? When I opened that journal and realized my whole life was a script you'd written. He didn't have an answer for that. I turned to go back inside. Over my shoulder, I added, 30 days. The letter explains everything. I suggest you read it carefully. I left him standing there in the parking lot, holding that letter like it might explode. My hands didn't start shaking until I got back to the circulation desk. But this time it wasn't from fear. It was adrenaline. They tried to wait me out. A week passed. No response to the letter. No acknowledgement. They moved through the house like I was invisible. Mom made dinner for 3. Dad locked his office when I walked by. Madison stayed neutral, which was probably the best I could hope for. Fine. I could be patient. Mr. Chin called on day 9. Any movement on their end? Nothing. Total silence. That's a strategy. They're hoping you'll back down. Most family disputes don't go to court because someone blinks first. I'm not blinking. Good. Because I did some additional research. Those trust documents you showed me. There's something interesting in the fine print. I sat up straighter. What? The educational fund wasn't just money your parents saved. Your grandmother contributed. Significantly. There are records of deposits from her account going back years. My grandmother. Dad's mom. She'd passed away when I was 14. I remembered her as stern but fair. She'd always asked about my grades, my plans. How much did she contribute? Over half. Roughly 48,000 of the original 83 came from her. The room tilted slightly. Does that change anything legally? It strengthens your case considerably. She designated those funds for your education specifically. There's documentation, letters accompanying the deposits. She was very clear about the money's purpose. I thought about the convertible in our driveway. The European vacation photos. All of it funded partially by a dead woman who'd wanted to help me go to college. When's the 30-day deadline? I asked. Next Tuesday. And if they don't respond? We file. I'll need you to come to the office Monday to review the complaint and sign it. After I hung up, I went downstairs. Mom was in the kitchen pretending to read a magazine. Dad was in the living room watching news with the volume too loud. Madison was on the couch scrolling her phone. I stood in the doorway. I need to tell you something. Dad muted the TV. Mom looked up. Both of them wary. Grandma contributed almost half the money in that education fund. She wrote letters stating it was specifically for my college. Not family expenses. Not Madison's cars. My education. Mom's face went white. Mr. Chen has copies of everything. The deposits, the letters, the documentation. So when you tell yourselves you were managing family money, remember, half of it wasn't yours to manage. I turned to leave, then stopped. You have until Tuesday to respond to the letter. After that, the decision is out of my hands. That night, I heard them fighting. Voices raised behind their closed bedroom door. I couldn't make out words, but the tone was clear. Panic. Blame. Desperation. Sunday morning, there was a knock on my door. Dad stood there, looking 10 years older than he had a week ago. We need to talk, he said. All of us. As a family. Finally. We sat at the dining room table. The same table where we'd had 1,000 family dinners. Where I'd done homework while they helped Madison with her easier classes. Where everything had always looked normal from the outside. Dad spoke first. We'll pay for your college. Full tuition, room and board. 4 years. I waited. There had to be more. But, Mom added, you need to drop the legal case. No lawyers. No letters. This stays in the family. And the money you already took. They exchanged a look. We can't return what's already been spent, Dad said carefully. But going forward, we'll make it right. That's not an apology. We're offering to pay for your entire education, Mom's voice had an edge. I'd say that's more than an apology. You're offering to do what you should have done in the first place. What Grandma's money was supposed to do. The mention of my grandmother made Dad flinch. What do you want from us? He asked. Blood. What did I want? I'd spent 2 weeks thinking about revenge. Imagining them humiliated, exposed, punished. But sitting there, looking at them, I realized something. They'd never see themselves as wrong. Not really. They'd justify, rationalize, twist it until they were victims of my ingratitude. I couldn't change that. But I could change what happened next. I want it in writing. Legal document. Amount specified, payment schedule, consequences if you default. And I want Madison's name on it too as a witness. Done, Dad said quickly. Too quickly. And I'm choosing my own school. My own major. My own life. No more instructions. No more control. Mom's jaw tightened, but she nodded. Fine. Mr. Chen drafted the agreement. They signed it 3 days later, faces tight with resentment. I moved out in August. Full ride to a school 6 states away that I'd chosen myself. Pre-law, because irony is beautiful. The journal sits on my bookshelf now. I kept it. Not as a gift, but as a reminder. They thought they were writing my story. But here's what they never understood: the quiet ones aren't weak. We're just waiting for the right chapter to speak. And when we do, everyone listens.